जय गजानना
लंबोदरा जय गजानना
लंबोदरा जय गजानना
लंबोदरा जय गजानना
पार्वती नंदन परमदया घन
पार्वती नंदन परमदया घन
पार्वती नंदन परमदया घन
पार्वती नंदन परमदया घन
लंबोदरा जय गजानना
लंबोदरा जय गजानना
बंध विमोचन भव भय भंजन
विमोचन भव भय भंजन
बंध विमोचन भव भय भंजन
विमोचन भव भय भंजन
प्रणव स्वरूपा हे शिवानंदन
स्वरूपा हे
प्रणव स्वरूपा हे शिवानंदन
स्वरूपा हे
पाहि प्रभो मां पाहि गजानन
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 लंबोदरा जय गजानना
लंबोदरा जय गजानना
पार्वती नंदन परमदया घन
पार्वती नंदन परमदया घन
लंबोदरा जय गजानना
लंबोदरा जय गजानना
बंध विमोचन भव भय भंजन
बंध विमोचन भव भय भंजन
प्रणव स्वरूपा हे शिवानंदन
प्रणव स्वरूपा हे शिवानंदन
पाहि प्रभो मां पाहि गजानन
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 लंबोदरा जय गजानना
It was just a beautiful smile. For some, it was a gentle reprimand.
Om Shri Sai Ram. I offer my humble and loving pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Swami. Respected elders, my dear brothers and sisters of the Sai family, a loving Sai Ram to all of you. First and foremost, I hope all of you are doing good and staying safe in these challenging times. And I pray to Swami that he gives us an earliest resolution to this challenging period. I would like to take this opportunity today to invite Brother Jagdish Chandra as the Samarpan speaker for the sixth time in Toronto. As you are aware, Samarpan Talk Session is the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning Alumni Initiative, and we are pleased to bring forward this for the sixth time in Canada. It is my honor and privilege that Brother Jagdish Chandra, JC, whom we call him lovingly, he is a batchmate of mine, and we started our undergraduation together in Vrindavan in 2000. And we also did our post-graduation together in Puttaparthi, in Prashanti Nilayam campus from 2004 to 2005, the 2 years. I don't know where to start. Such fond memories that I have with Brother Jagdish. I think so. The fact that we were co-room leaders in the same wing in Vrindavan, and right to the fact that in 2004 we both were having key roles in one of the best Independence Day dramas, which was pioneered by our batch, if I may. And after that, every year it has been going on in front of our beloved Bhagwan. And Swami was so happy with Jagdish's performance. I cannot forget that. Him and Brother Achintya played the senior members of that drama, and the drama is so special. And JC, your performance again today also, can bring tears to my eyes. So I'm very glad that you've actually taken up this offer and actually speak to us. So a little background about Brother Jagdish. After finishing his postgrad, he actually went to do MPhil in biophotonics from 2005 to 2007 in Sri Satya Sai Institute, and even went to receive his PhD in nonlinear optics in the year 2010. He was blessed to work in the institute as a professor in the Department of Physics until 2012. He later moved on to KLA Tenor as a technology specialist until 2018. And currently, he is resident in Oberkochen, Germany. Again, very similar to where I was placed, working for Carl Zeiss as a senior innovation manager. Brother Jagdish is truly blessed because he's traveled with the Lord himself to Kodaikanal and Chennai in 2007. He was also part of the Divine Entourage to Delhi and Shimla in 2010. He's had tremendous amount of experiences with Swami in person for sure, but the amount of time Swami has asked him to speak in his physical presence, the amount of dramas that he's been instrumental, the benefit of having such fluent command over English, Hindi, and Telugu. JC, I was really jealous of that because you got chance to do so many dramas in so many languages, and that was such a blessing. And I'll never forget when you portrayed the role of Lord Krishna in front of our beloved Sai Krishna, and it was such a beautiful drama that you were a part of. So with this little introduction, I just want to take this chance to welcome you, Jagdish, for the Sai Samarpan session of Toronto. And the stage is open. It's all yours. I'm sure you'll wow us with your beautiful experiences that Swami has blessed you with. Jai Sai Ram.
Brother, you are on mute.
Offering my most loving pranams at the divine lotus feet. Respected elders, dear sisters and brothers of the Toronto Sai family, Sai Ram to one and all. The Shravan and I share a very long-standing camaraderie, and he's almost put me to tears, reminding me of those days. I'm not sure if I really deserve those kind of accolades that he has showered on me. But those were wonderful days. Every drama, every performance that we got a chance to put up in front of Bhagwan. And just before I set out to share my experiences, this has just put me on a phenomenal positive trail, if I may say so. And as Shravan rightly mentioned, these are testing times. And these are those occasions, those times, when I'm sure this would be the experience of each one of us. That in the last 1.5 to 2 years, we sort of are cocooned in our own little nests. And we use this opportunity to go a bit deeper, probably an inch into the skin, and try to answer or ask some of the most fundamental questions that we are generally supposed to ask, especially after having seen a cosmic phenomenon like Bhagwan. More often than not, most of us have embarked on that sacred ritual that we call prayer. And during these times when we all are trying that and making that attempt to reach out, to connect, to explore, what exactly is prayer? I have chosen this particular topic and thought of sharing my thoughts, experiences, and the little that we got to see, we got to hear, experience, and analyze, spending those wonderful days in the divine presence of the Cosmic Lord. I very vividly remember, and I'm sure Shravan would remember this too, it was the occasion of a Trai session. And one of our professors was asked by Bhagwan to give a talk. And as the professor was about to give the talk, there was a beautiful remark by Swami, sort of indicating what should be the topic of the talk, probably. And Swami said, "Life is fragile, handle with prayer." We have always seen those markings on fragile equipment or fragile transportation goods. On the carton box, it will be written, "Fragile, handle with care." And there Swami was trying to give a very subtle message. We are carrying something very precious deep inside of us. And life is fragile, so handle with prayer. The professor got up and gave a beautiful talk on prayer, its efficacies, and its importance. And in the talk, one of the statements that our teacher made was, prayer is God's only weakness and man's only strength. And to add to the effect of that particular statement after the talk, Swami reiterated that very phrase. He said, prayer is God's only weakness and man's only strength. In the Sanatana Dharma philosophy and in the Hindu mythology, if you see, the relevance of prayers through various mantras, through various chants, is not something that is alien to us. We know it in and out. I would like to jog back to a portion of memory where in the year 2007, it was the month of December, I was just told that Swami is waiting for me in the interview room and he wanted me there. And I go running in, I open the door, and this is the most beautiful scenes in your life if you can ever imagine. The doors opening and you can see Swami straight ahead and he's smiling at you. And as I enter and fall at his feet, he asks me one question: what are you going to speak? Sometimes when you really don't know anything, and that too, the most enigmatic personality, the most enigmatic cosmic personality is standing in front of you and he asks you a question, what should be your answer? And Swami's question was equally intriguing. He said, "What are you going to speak?" I was blank for a second, but there was one thing that always was deep in my heart, and those were the first few phrases of the Hanuman Chalisa. And I just sort of blurted it out in Bhagwan's presence, if I may say so. I said, "Swami, Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja." And Swami's face lit up. He said, "Chala manchidra. Chala manchidi. Guru gurinchi. Cheppu. Very good. It's about the Guru. Speak." And then as I was telling within myself, "Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja Nijamana Mukura Sudhar. Baranau Raghubara Bimala Jasu. Jodaya Kufalachari." The literal translation of these few phrases or these couplets is, I offer the dust of the feet of my Guru at my forehead, and I would try to make a humble attempt at describing his glory, by listening to which alone one is capable of achieving the four results or the four stages. And what are those four results? Jo dayaku falachari means it gives you four results, or it gives you four achievements. What are those? They are the four purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But for some reason, as I was telling Swami liked that, and I said, "Yeah, all that is good, but Hindi mein mat bolna, juta marenge log." So he literally said that, "Okay, don't speak in Hindi, they're going to throw shoes at you." And I was wondering why. And then Swami said, "No, we are going to South India. So that people wouldn't understand. There's no point in you talking in Hindi there. So you have to talk in English." I said, "Yes, Swami, I will make an attempt and I will talk in English." And that was the time when it dawned on me that I was a part of the entourage, the chosen 10 who were flying with Bhagwan to Chennai. The reason why this came to my mind at this point is basically the importance of prayer. Each of those prayers in our mythology, let us take the Hanuman Chalisa, let us take the Gayatri Mantra, probably the Mahamrityunjaya Mantra, the Rudram, Namakam, Chamakam, they are not mere words, sounds, and syllables. There is a much deeper significance to each one of them. And it is extremely beautiful to go into that journey of where a prayer begins and where it ends. At a very physical level, what exactly is a prayer? The great author Khalil Gibran once said, "A prayer is nothing but a petition, a recommendation. Good that it is not an affidavit, but at least it's a petition and a recommendation to God to tell him, if you do this for me, I think it's good." So you're suggesting to God in some sense. It's a one-way communication where we have a set of desires and we try to tell him what he should do for our good. That part is basically a petition. The next part, slightly, when we start thinking about others too, like initially it's all about me and mine, and then we start praying for others, and that is when it becomes a conversation, because we have slightly opened up. Till now we were only one way. We have a set of desires and we want them fulfilled. Then we look around and then we start praying for others, and then it becomes more of a conversation when we are open a bit to him, to probably listen or to probably take cognizance of what people around us are going through and understanding their trials and tribulations and probably what they are going through. That leads to something like contemplation, wherein we realize that one of the most important reasons for us to pray is basically for our own evolution. And that finally ends in acceptance or silence, wherein we shut up and we try to listen what he's talking to us, or rather he's telling us. Prayer from the first standpoint, where we have recommendations, where we have petitions, and we have offers to make, it's for me and mine kind of a philosophy. When we think probably that we can actually barter with God, we can conduct a transaction with him, that Lord, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you. Lord, this time, if I get a distinction in my results, I'll offer something to you. Probably I'll offer 100 pedas in your temple. Or if you do that, I will do this and this. And this is how it happens. And to that effect, Swami very lovingly accedes to those barter systems. He's very cognizant of that, and he agrees to be a part and parcel of all of that. But one fine day, it was a very beautiful discourse that Bhagwan gave, and in that he said, "You all pray to the Lord of the Seven Hills, Tirupati Balaji, I'm talking about." And there's a custom. They say that, you pray to him and you say, "Lord, if I get a distinction this time, I'll come and offer my hair there." And in Hindi, we call it Mundan Sanskar. You basically shed your hair and give it there. And we feel we have really given something phenomenal. Means what we got is distinction or first division results. And what we offered is hair. And we think it's so great that we have sacrificed. Is it great or not is a different question. But what Swami said is, do you think the Lord of the Seven Hills is waiting for your hair? And what Swami said was equally jovial and funny. He said, "Uchchavaina korikala kori, tuchchavaina buchcha nistaru." Means you basically desire something so stupendous, unimaginable, but what you offer is just hair. Nobody wants that hair. Nobody's interested in it. Do you think the Lord of the Seven Hills is waiting for that? But in some sense, it's basically a barter. We are ready to shed our ego, our tamas, and give up. It has a significance which is more metaphorical than physical. But yet the Lord is a willing participant of that transaction. Whether knowingly or unknowingly, a small instance, a small experience, in the form of Brahmarpanam. We all are taught we should chant Brahmarpanam. Why do we chant Brahmarpanam? We offer the food to God at a very physical level. It is like to ward off all the evil effects of that which we are going to consume, so that when we pray, we offer it to Him. That becomes a naivedyam, an offering to God. And when we partake of that, it becomes prasadam. That is the inner meaning. But just to help us go on to that first step, take that first step towards Him, when we're striking a relation, okay, let it be a business deal, but nevertheless I am praying, or nevertheless He is praying. So it was in the primary school, Bhagwan was sitting for a lunch session, and all the kids closed their eyes and beautifully were chanting Brahmarpanam. Suddenly at that juncture, a little kid felt that Brahmarpanam is basically offering food to Swami. Now when Swami is right in front of me, why should I pray? Let me just walk to Him with my plate and just give my plate to Him. So very innocently, he walks with his plate and he goes to Swami. And understanding what is happening in his mind, Swami very beautifully takes a small piece of the vada that was served as a part of that meal, and he puts it in his mouth. And one could see there was sort of a discomfort as Swami was chewing that piece of vada. And then came that beautiful lesson. Swami said, when you do Brahmarpanam, or when you offer the food, I literally take that which is harmful for you in the food and make it safe for you. So what Swami did was, when he picked up that small piece of the vada, there was a piece of chili that was there, and Swami exactly took that chili, and that is what he consumed. That is what Shiva does in the Samudra Manthana or Sagar Manthana, where when the ocean was churned, he was the one who took the halahala poison, and he gave Amrita to everyone. In a very subtle way, he sent that message that in this transaction, in this prayer, in this barter, he is willing to take the lower seat, and he is willing to give us what we want. Because at some point in time, we might end up asking what he has really come to give. In the spiritual parlance, one of the most important or one of the most heinous crimes or sins, if I may say so, is basically the sense of doership. Thinking that I am the one who is in control of everything. And there's a very beautiful conversation. Probably I don't know of which Purana it is a part of, but it's beautiful nevertheless to go through this. And the story is just before the Draupadi Swayamvar, Krishna and Arjuna are talking to each other. And Krishna, like a coach, like an Olympic coach, he's telling Arjuna, you should focus properly, your attention should be perfect, the fish will be moving up, and you have to take a proper aim. You should make sure that your aim is perfect, that your hand is at a proper angle, your bow and arrow are at a perfect angle, and you have one shot at it, and you should have to hit the eye, and all these things. Now, Arjuna was no less an archer, by the way. He was famed as Dhananjaya, and receiving such a coaching felt a little kiddish for him. And he wanted to retort or take a jibe at Lord Krishna, and he said, Lord, if I am going to do everything, then what is it that you are going to do? This is the sort of barter we get into. And we said, okay, if I'm doing everything, then what is it that you are going to do? And Lord Krishna assumes a very grave face, and he tells, I'm going to do something that you will never be able to do in your lifetimes. And Arjuna says, what is that, O Lord? Lord Krishna says, I will make sure that the wind is still. Just imagine, of all the things, of all the skills that Arjuna had, there is very limited, there are very limited capabilities that are really under our controls. Under our control, and if things have to go wrong, there are 1,000,001 ways in which they can go wrong. Who is it that is controlling all those billion factors? Just imagine the wind a little high on that particular day, Mahabharata would have been a different story. Absolutely different story. And Lord is giving that hint to him that you might have a lot of name, fame, no matter what you are, just realize the control that you have is very limited. And yet, he plays. A dear roommate of mine, a batchmate of mine, who went on to top one of India's most prestigious engineering aptitude tests, and he came All India rank 1. This was his experience, pardon me. And when he won that first rank, there were quite a few other students who won different ranks, and Swami wanted to honor all of these students. And he called him for an interview. His parents were also called. And then in the interview, he said, Swami, I really don't know, because I tried my best. I did everything, but there were a few questions I just didn't know. So in the end, a few of them, I just randomly, based on the best guess that I could take, or the best engineering judgment I could take, I just selected a few answers. And Swami said, I know. And that's why I made them right. I solved them for you. It takes us back to that fact of doership. That great sin that we think that a lot of things are dependent on us. A lot of things are based on our own judgment of right and wrong. Seldom do we realize that most variables, almost all variables, are out of our control. So does the first form of prayer, wherein we are putting up a petition, really hold good? Yes, it does hold good, because that is the first contact. That is the first time we are trying to make contact with him, and he welcomes it. As a batch, Shravan just mentioned how passionate we were to put up a drama in front of Swami. How many dramas were we a part of? Means whenever we practice something and some teacher or the warden would tell us, this drama your batch put up is excellent. It's of the standard that it can be put up in front of Swami. We would literally not go home that vacation. We would stay back hoping to get that one chance to put up that drama. And as luck would have it, or as the divine providence would have it, in his court, there could be delays, but there are no denials. For the first 3 years of our stay, we never got a chance to put up a drama in the divine presence. But when he decided to shower there was no end to that grace. The kind of dramas that we put up, we were one of the first batches to put up an Independence Day drama in his presence that he liked a lot. We started a series of other events, all related to dramatics and things like that. And we got that understanding of what it is to pray as a community. You have an individual prayer, and the next step is slightly different. When we all get together and pray, Swami very beautifully and often mentioned about Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, that the concept of community prayer was actually started by him. The Kirtans, what we know today, and Swami very beautifully plays with that word that don't say Vahai Guru, say Vah Guru. Never question the Guru, but always praise the Lord or praise the Guru. That's prayer of a batch that year after year wanted to perform in front of him, because it's an opportunity to stand in front of him. The way he gave us chances, at one point in time we started putting up like something called as the corridor dramas, wherein Swami would want a program every day, so without costumes, just in white and white, in that small stretch of land, probably 40 feet by 10 feet or 40 feet by 4 feet, we performed, and he enjoyed that. And probably it was a result of those beautiful prayers that we wanted, that as a batch we put forth in front of him. So that is like prayer for me and mine, a recommendation, a petition at an individual level, slightly greater to a group level, where we all want to pray. And then comes the next level, wherein we pray, we become more inclusive in our prayers. We pray for others. We not merely pray for individual selves or group or collective selves, but pray for others, where probably our hearts have opened up a little. It's an interesting story. It's the story of a cobbler. A cobbler who was a very devout follower of the Lord, and he would pray very often, but he would struggle. And his struggle was the following. He mended the shoes of the poor peasants of the village who would have only one pair of shoes, and probably they would leave the shoes with this cobbler in the evening to be repaired, because they wanted it early in the morning before they set out for the fields, probably in the dawn. And the cobbler's dilemma was that even by dawn he would not have finished the work, and he had this dilemma. He was not able to pray at all. So he went to the rabbi, the local priest, and he put forth his predicament. And the learned rabbi asked him, "So what do you do?" The innocent cobbler replied, he said, "Sometimes I rush through my prayers, and many other times I'm not even able to pray. And in those occasions, even as my hammer is hitting the shoe, I think how unfortunate I am that I'm not even able to pray." And the rabbi replied, he said, "If I were God, I would honor your sighs more than your prayers. I would love that sigh when you say that, oh, I'm not able to pray, because that sigh is more endearing to me than the act of prayer itself, because that is engaged in helping someone else. That is engaged, that is coming from a yearning." And in fact, it's a very beautiful thought when somebody asked Swami one day, "Why do you incarnate?" That is the question that a lot of people have asked Swami, right from Veda Vyasa to everyone. And he has given different answers. Probably we'll never get to the bottom of it. But one of the beautiful answers that Swami gave was, "I come down to taste the yearning of my devotees." That yearning, I can enjoy only in a physical form. I get to see that firsthand. And just to experience that, I come. And I still vividly remember that evening when Swami called all the students who were employed in the Central Trust and the institutes and Satyasai institutions at that point in time. And as that day progressed, he gave a very beautiful, what should I say, a guidance. And what was that guidance? The guidance was a prayer. And what was that prayer? Swami said, "Boys, I have something deep in my heart. I have a request for you. those are those opportunities where you feel like melting and disappearing. Because when the Lord says that I have a request, and what was that request? The request was, boys, you always pray Loka Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu. I feel that is a very non-inclusive prayer. It is probably a bit narrow. Just imagine we are praying Loka Samastha, the entire world should be happy. And Swami said, no, but you are talking only about your world. There are many worlds. So I want to change it to Samasta Lokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Let all the worlds be happy. That is the definition of Swami. He's so inclusive. He wants us to broaden the horizons of our own thought when we decide to pray. What exactly are we praying for? And when he made that request, it was but natural that from that very session, that very arati that was performed, after that, Sai Kulwant Hall started reverberating with Samasta Lokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. It's a prayer for everyone. It's a prayer for the welfare of everyone. So my process, which began with me and mine, has now started taking cognizance of people around me. One of the professors in Shanti Nilayam, his parents were the first to come to Bhagwan, and they settled there. And as they settled, the father was very aged after a certain point in time, and his movements got restricted. He couldn't come for darshan very often. So one fine day, Swami asked that he be brought for an interview, and Swami started talking to him. And Swami asked him, what sadhana do you do? What do you chant? What do you pray? And he said, Swami, I stand near the balcony. So they were living in the East Prashanti, so which right in adjacent to this Sai Kulwant Hall. And from there, whenever you come, I managed to get a glimpse. Swami said, that is okay. But I want you to do something more. And what is it? Swami said, when you stand or when you sit in the veranda of the East Prashanti, what do you see around? He said, Swami, I see a lot of people walking to and fro, a lot of people moving. He said, whenever you look at any person, tell yourself, there is no difference between that person and Swami. There is no difference between that person and Swami. I want you to do this. I mean, this is a prayer, a mantra given by the Lord himself. Over a period of time, that person repeatedly started practicing this. He would sit on the veranda of the East Prashanti. Every person he saw who passed by, his statement would be, there is no difference between him and Swami. This continued for a few years, and that person's children, like that is one of them is the professor, and their family, the siblings, would come often and would come for darshan, Bhagwan's darshan as well, and they would spend some time here with their parents. And towards the end, when it came to a point where they were not able to spend longer times, or when they could not get darshan, one fine day, one of the siblings, she wanted, but she couldn't get Swami's darshan, or she couldn't get Swami's Pad Namaskar, or take permission to leave. So she was wondering how to do that or how to go about it. And she told this to her father, who was sitting on that veranda. And probably over that period of chanting that mantra, if I may say so, if you received it from the Lord, it is definitely a mantra. It is not less than any Veda. And the father was in a different state. He just said, there is no difference between those lotus feet and this feet. Just take namaskar and go. She bent down, took namaskar, and as she walked out, that was the last namaskar she had of her father. And 2 days later, he was no more. But the beauty is how the prayer transformed. What effect that prayer had. And just see what is the directionality of that prayer. In physics, we study about scalar and vector quantities. They are physical entities when we try to measure something or measure certain variables. The potency of a prayer is a scalar entity. You have certain effect of praying, but how or where have you directed that prayer? Is it directed towards me, or is it directed outside of me? Where is the direction? And that direction is very important. And Swami gave that beautiful direction when he said, towards everyone, just tell anyone whom you see, he is no different from Swami. And that direction becomes very important. But many a times what happens is we fall into that trap. And the trap is that we try to assume without understanding. I often like this very beautiful phrase: there is a difference between imitation and following. There's a difference between imitating Swami and following Swami. And in that regard, I would like to add this beautiful small experience, the tiny tots of primary school again. Though it's very wrong of me to draw a parallel in that way, but the lesson is important. Though it might not mean exactly by words, but the lesson is important. And the experience is the following. The tiny tots were sitting, 3 of them were sitting in front of the interview room, their birthdays, and Swami steps out, gliding majestically out of the interview room. He comes close to them and he asks the first boy as he's blessing him, "Who are you?" And the boy very innocently starts shivering. He didn't expect that answer. Probably the traditional questions that he might have heard or he would have been prepared with would be like, what did you have for breakfast in the morning? What is your name? But this was a bolt from the blue from his intellectual standpoint. Who are you? And he said, "I don't know, Swami." And then Swami very lovingly patted his cheek and he said, "You are God." And the boy was very happy and he knelt down and he took namaskar. Swami moved to the next boy. And as he moved, he basically stood up and he offered the tray that he was holding as well. And Swami asked the same question to him, "Who are you?" He heard the previous answer, but still he wanted to be original. And he said, "Swami, I am your devotee." And Swami said, "No, you are God too." The lesson was conveyed. The third student now was coached enough. He saw and he knew what is expected. By the time Swami came to him and asked him, "Who are you?" he immediately said, "Swami, I am God." And Swami said, "Then why are you sitting here? Go and give darshan. People are waiting for you." Ignorance is okay, but parading ignorance is a bigger sin. He is willing to coach us to remove our ignorance, but to what extent? As long as that is not a show off without understanding of the words. It's very important for us to know this difference, that when we pray, how many times do we often measure the words of our prayer, what it means to us? Once when Swami was upset with students and everyone wanted Swami to oblige, so they all surrounded Swami and started literally, "Please Swami, please Swami, please Swami." And boys in chorus were literally surrounded Swami and started telling, "Please, please Swami, please Swami." And then Swami gave a very beautiful reply. He said, "Please Swami, please Swami, please Swami." Then, "Please Swami." He's flipped the meaning of the word. You all are requesting Swami, "Swami, please do it for us," or "Please do something," or "Please, please." But what Swami said was, if you are saying "Please Swami," the easiest way to do that is actually to please Swami. You do something that pleases him. And that's the way he does what you like. Again, a continuation of that prayer. But then it takes us to a very interesting part. From I and mine, we get into that mode wherein we really start thinking or contemplating on things that are slightly more esoteric, things that are more related to our inner being. and prayer becomes a contemplation. Recently came across a beautiful saying which said, "We all are broken, and that's how light enters us." At some level, there are some chinks in our armor, and that is how he decides to enter us. In fact, another beautiful play of words is, if you don't allow God to enter your heart, he will break your heart and enter it. It is both metaphorically and verbatim. Or figuratively, it stands perfect. He breaks your heart. He gives you some tough times so that there is that small gap, and that is an opportunity for him to enter our lives. Not that he's not, but at least for us to understand or for us to know. And that is when we contemplate, we start focusing on our drawbacks, and we probably start giving up that sense of doership, that we are the doers. And this is one of the greatest ills that haunts mankind. This is the reason why a lot of these prayers are basically directed towards these elements. The Mahamrityunjaya mantra, for example. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhanat. The Urvaruka. What exactly is Urvaruka? It is basically a cucumber, and one might think that in this Mahamrityunjaya mantra, what is a cucumber doing? It's basically a cucumber or one of the species of the gourd family. What the mantra says is actually, "O Lord, let me be detached from all these delusions exactly, or give me the understanding to detach myself just as in a way as a cucumber detaches itself once it is ripe." If you have ever seen a cucumber fall from it's a creeper probably, and when it falls, it dries and it falls as if it was never attached to the creeper. It just falls. And that Mahamrityunjaya mantra in that way is basically asking for detachment from the fear. So basically, what is the greatest fear? As we just some time back, as I was mentioning, the greatest misery, greatest sin is also the greatest cause of the greatest fear, and that is, I am the body, or the doership. I am the one who is doing. And to help us get rid of that particular prayer, when it becomes a part of our contemplation through the faith, it becomes one of the most beautiful aspects. A small story here. At one point in time in Prasanthi Nilayam, a family from Punjab had come. Now, they were waiting for quite a few days, and the entire family had come with a very elderly lady. Probably she was the sort of the head of the family kind. And they were waiting. They waited for a good couple of weeks. And Swami was nowhere looking in their direction at all. So one fine day, in the darshan lines, that elderly lady literally stood up and yelled from there. And she said in Punjabi to an effect that, "Pape, mainu tera ravaiya theek nahi lag raha hai." And she literally retorted. She literally told Swami, "Oh Swami, I'm not liking your attitude." And Swami turned towards her and said, "Arey Amma," and Kabaya called them for an interview. And everything, they had a good time in Bhagwan's presence, and they came out, and probably a few of the devotees got some ideas. Okay, now we know how to get an interview from Bhagwan. You get up and yell, and he'll call you for an interview, sort of a thing. But there was a story. And what was the story? The story was that in their family, that elderly lady's family, they had a grandson. The grandson was born. And Swami came in their dream and told, "Do not name him. Get him to Puttaparthi. I will christen him, or I will name him in the interview room, or whichever way. I will name him." And so that was a promise. So what they did was that at the earliest possible time, when they had just harvested their crops and everything was ready, they took that infant along with the whole entourage. They came from Punjab, and they came to Prasanthi Nilayam, and now they've been waiting for a couple of weeks, and 3 weeks are getting over. The season for the next crop has already passed. The time for sowing is already almost coming close, and there is no way that Swami is even looking at them. And this is where the lady felt, and she said, "Pape, manu tera ravaiya theek nahi lag raha hai." Say, "I'm not liking this attitude. You come in my dream and you call me, and then you don't even turn towards me. How is that justified?" And then Swami, the loving Lord that he is, he called them in, and He blessed them and he christened the child with a name, and all of that happened, and they went back. Now the story doesn't end here. They go back to their village, and when they enter the village, they find that their fields have already been sown with crops. And now they ask these people around who did it, why they did it. And they said, no, some people just came and they said that you employed those people, and said they came and they performed all of these sowing activities and things like that. And then this elderly lady started laughing. She said, oh, now I know who did it. It is our Pape. He is in Puttaparthi. He is the one who would have done it. So that is how she addressed it. She wouldn't call Baba, she would call Pape. And the people got curious. Who is he? Is he a very influential person that he sent so many people to do work at your place and things like that? And then she sat and explained that he is our Lord. And when that explanation was provided and they found something that really they wanted to hear, a couple of ladies approached this elderly lady and said, see, we have no children. Can that fakir or can that Baba bless us so that we have children too? And she, without even a thought, oh, he can do anything. No, Papa can do anything, so don't worry. I'll tell him. Next time, after that season of crops was harvested, they again decided, this lady along with that family decided to visit Prashanthi Nilayam. And this time the Lord was sweet enough to call them for an interview immediately. He didn't give her a chance the second time to stand up in darshan. So they were called in, and as the things were happening, the things were being discussed in the interview room, this lady remembered the prayer of the other two ladies from her village, and she said, Pape, there are those two ladies. They have prayed to you that you should bless them with children. They don't have children. And the way very sweetly sometimes Swami expresses his inability as if he is bound by the laws of karma. Swami started showing the forehead. In Telugu we call it Nuduti Rata, means what is written on your forehead, your destiny, it cannot be changed. And Swami said, Kya kar sakta hai amma, yahan pe likha hai, kya kar sakta hai, kya karega? And at that moment, that lady caught hold of Swami's arm. And in Punjabi, she said, oh, Pape, otthe ne likha hai, to tu ethe likh. Baba, if it is not written there, that means if the destiny is not written in her destiny then, when she was born, you write it right now. You have the ability to change it. Change it. And equally interesting is Swami's reaction to that prayer. And Swami said, karta hai amma, karta hai na, karta hai. Chinta mat karo, abhi karta hai. And that moment Swami said, I will that they will have children. It doesn't take a genius to guess that the next year, those two ladies, along with this elderly lady, came to Prashanthi Nilayam with their children. When prayer is no longer directed to one's own self, it is no longer about a group of people, but it is totally about somebody else. When you think about others' problems, when you contemplate about them, and you are moved by their plight, and you beseech the Lord on their behalf, it ceases to be a prayer. It becomes a contemplation. And that becomes a source of inner transformation. If you go from that particular, aspect of the prayer transiting or going from a level wherein it ceases to be narrow and becomes more inclusive, that becomes the source of the greatest transformation that happens within. And that is when the communication slightly changes. The communication becomes, in some sense, we are no longer the ones who are sitting and chatting. We become silent, and we are now trying to listen. So that which began as a petition became a conversation, finally transformed into contemplation, and then metamorphosized into acceptance or silence. that is one of the most beautiful faces. And there is a very beautiful prayer called the Serenity Prayer. And it goes as, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. The first thing is, give me the serenity to accept. That is when we listen and stop talking. There's an interesting story again. A very famous saint of a village who wanted to sit for his evening prayers. And as he sat for his evening prayers, the bullfrogs all around, there was a marsh, and they were croaking at the top of their voice. But this saint was no ordinary person. He was quite accomplished in his spiritual prowess, and with that authority, he commanded the frogs to keep quiet. And since he was a man of such an accomplishment, all the frogs went quiet. And as the frogs went quiet, another kind of noise started coming, and that was the noise from within him, which said, probably Lord wants the frogs to croak. And now he started thinking, what good is it in a frog's croaking that the God would want to listen? It's not even melodious. What is there in it that the God would be interested? And then came the reply from within. If that was the reason, then God wouldn't have invented sound in the first place, or God wouldn't have created sound at all. At that point in time, this argument that came from within made a lot of sense to this spiritual seeker. And he went out, opened the window, and then commanded the frogs to croak. In a short time, all the frogs joined. They started croaking. And then he realized that if he stopped resisting them, it actually enriched the silence of the night. That he started enjoying that. And that is when he understood the most beautiful part of prayer is that of acceptance. I would like to share a couple of very beautiful episodes here. At one stage in my stay, or the decade-long stay in Bhagwan's presence or in his proximity, I got a number of opportunities to direct a lot of dramas. Initially, it began with speaking, acting, and then as you graduated, you became senior as a research scholar and a teacher. The responsibility of directing dramas and giving opportunities or chances of coaching youngsters. In that class, there was one particular boy, very saintly personality, very devoted. He would religiously follow, or at least try to follow, whatever Swami said, and nobody ever heard a voice from him. You know, when such beautiful souls exist, the whole batch feels for it. But the hindsight was that he really didn't have the so-called talents, to act or to speak. So he would always be in his own world, in his own corner, and he would really, that is, having come so close to Swami, if you don't make that final yard, you feel you have missed something great in your life. And what happened was, when I was directing this drama, the other students, they came and said, "Brother, can you give some role to that boy?" That boy never came. He never asked. I said, "If you all want it, definitely. I'm the last person who would really stop him. So please tell me." And then we decided a particular role for him so that he gets a chance to deliver a few dialogues. And then we asked him, "Brother, would you be willing to take this role?" And he was like perplexed. Why did they call me? I don't even know how to act. I don't even know how to talk. And then he said, No, I cannot. I just cannot act. I just cannot talk. But the other boys in the class were insisting that he be a part of the drama because he really would cherish that opportunity when he gets to go close to Swami and get that photograph. And then we decided, okay, we'll give you a role in which you don't have to utter a dialogue. You just have to stand for 5 minutes. The scene was a court scene of a king, and he was one of the bodyguards. The king has 2 bodyguards, and he was one of the bodyguards, and he had to hold the spear and stand in stoic silence for 5 minutes. And that was the role. He really enjoyed it, with the trepidation that, I'm not even an actor. How will Swami feel? Would he be happy if I am there? So he said, offer it to Swami if you have that doubt, because there are no dialogues. You don't have to act. So he agreed and he stood. The drama went on fantastically well. Swami liked it a lot. He blessed everyone profusely. And this matter skipped my attention after some time. A few days later, after the drama, we were shown the photographs, you students have at the end of the drama and during the drama. They came into circulation, and I received a copy of them, and I was flipping across and seeing all these photographs. And then I see a group photograph in which everyone is a bouquet of emotions around Swami. Swami being the central, beautiful, enigmatic figure. Everyone is a bouquet of emotions. And this boy, to one corner, he's not looking at Swami. His eyes are closed. And there is a very serene smile that is lighting up his face. And that puzzled me. What exactly happened? Because everyone is looking towards Swami and he's in his own world, in that group photograph, around Swami. And as luck would have it, that day, as I was going to the college, I crossed paths with him and I asked him, brother, I just want to discuss something with you. And what exactly happened? He said, brother, I have nothing else to ask in life. I said, what happened? Now tell me, I'm getting more curious. He said, brother, in that scene you remember on which I was, it was a very heavy scene. A lot of dialogues exchanged to and fro between the antagonist and the protagonist, and he was just a soldier who was standing. And as he stood there, a conversation began between him and Swami, which was a silent conversation. And he said, Swami, please forgive me, I'm not an actor. I don't even know if I deserve to stand in front of you. I'm trying to be a good boy, I'm trying to follow your teaching, Swami, but I think probably I'm faltering here and there. Will you forgive me? Will you help me become better? In the midst of that heavy scene, a grave scene, wherein a lot of fiery dialogues are going to and fro, Swami looking at the king, who was one of the main persons delivering dialogues, and right next to the king was this boy. And when that thought came, Swami, do you accept me? Swami looks and smiles in the midst of that scene, and Swami smiles at him and he is in tears. Thankfully, the scene was coming to an end and he just disappeared. And probably that conversation, that prayer between him and Swami was an alternate parallel drama that was running. It's so much similar to our lives with whatever we are doing. Each one of us have that direct connection with Bhagwan. And he responds to each and every individual prayer. And the beauty with which he responded, that one smile, that changed everything. And he was lost in that bliss, that I have gained everything. Swami has said yes and he has smiled. There is nothing more that I need in my life. And that is the serenity. That is the acceptance that the most beautiful prayer leads to, when we are receptive of his gestures, of his indications. And probably it wouldn't be an understatement to say that acceptance is nothing, that acceptance is nothing but surrender. If you see the 9 forms of devotions, the Navavida Bhakti, the one that comes at that level is Atmanivedanam, the ultimate form of devotion that Radha exhibited. In fact, this was a very beautiful episode in my life. And I would like to share this in this forum here. And this is related to that final part of the prayer that we are calling acceptance or surrender. It was during the Chennai trip when we had the great blessing of accompanying Bhagwan as a part of his entourage to Chennai. And each one of us got the chance to speak. In fact, he had taken us specifically for that very purpose, that each of us gave a talk for the Atirudra Mahayagnam that was to be conducted in Tiruvanmayur in Chennai. And one fine day, Swami, as we were having our dinner session with Bhagwan, we were 5 of us in that room with Bhagwan, and the other 5 would have downstairs, and we would alternate every session because the room was a small one and not many people could sit with him, so only 5 of us at a time. And that day, so as I finished my meal and I went to wash my hands, Swami asked, who's going to speak next? And the others said, Swami, Jagdish. It is Jagdish's turn. So Swami said, where is Jagdish? Call him. So I was washing my hand and I just came running after washing my hand. And I came in Bhagwan's presence and Swami asked, so what are you going to talk tomorrow? And my topic was that same thing that I had prayed to him, Guru. I said, Swami, about Guru. Swami, good. So what are you going to talk about Guru? Swami asked. I said, Swami, the little that I have heard or read from the scriptures and from my elders, Guru is actually comprised of 2 syllables, Gu and Ru. Gu stands for Gunatita and Ru stands for Rupavarjita. So the one who has transcended attributes and form, he is a Guru. And next came Swami's question, have you ever found such a Guru in your life? And it was very seriously Swami asked. And I said, Swami, you? That is a natural answer. And then Swami said, see, you just now said Rupavarjita. Gunatita and Rupavarjita means one who is beyond the form, but I have a form. And you know, that wisdom sometimes takes a bit of time to dawn, that you cannot reason with the Lord. He is the one who is beyond reason. The Bhagavatam describes him as Ahetuki. His grace and his love needs no reason. He just showers. And so beautifully Swami translated in that, love is my form, truth is my breath. No reason for love, no season for love. In the Sanskrit parlance, that word that I love so much is Ahetuki. It has no reason. And as I said, I didn't want to reason any further. And I said, Swami, form or no form, you are my Guru. And then Swami smiled. I said, okay. So what are you going to talk on? So I said, Swami, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, that shloka, that just as a Guru, like Brahma, sows the seed of goodness, you sow the seed of goodness within us. Just as Vishnu, who's the Lord of sustenance of the material world, you sustain that goodness within us. And just as Lord Shiva, Rudra, who annihilates the bad aspects or anything that clouds this goodness, you destroy the evil. Swami said, very good, but the pujaris will not agree with what you are speaking. And that is when it struck me a bit that the puja is performed by the priests who are Shaivites. And there is a sort of, what should I say? There is a miscommunication or some kind of a difference of opinion between the Vaishnavites and the Shaivites. Now, if you tell that Guru is Shiva, and then you say that Guru is Vishnu, it just doesn't get along well with them. They don't accept it very easily, and they don't correlate with that very easily. And that is when I realized, oh my God, and now tomorrow is my talk. What do I do? How do I change it? And then I said, Swami, what should I do? And then this is where, the Maya Nataka Sutradhari, you call him, he is the one who is the scripter of all these plays. And he said, you talk, I will take care. I'm really not sure what the priests heard that day, the ones who actually performed the Atirudra Yagnam. But I could see very clearly they were the ones who were clapping loudest. And I had no clue what they heard. But I knew what Swami was hinting at on that particular day before the talk. And then, after telling all of this, Swami was literally in a mood to give. And he said, boys, you have a lot of doubts in your minds. Today, ask that doubt which is innermost in your heart, and I will answer that question. So for us, it was like, you cannot ask anything greater than this. So each one of us were ready with that doubt which was innermost, which really beckoned an answer. And when my turn came, I asked Swami that question. Swami, what is the meaning of surrender? Sharanagati ante emi, Swami? What is acceptance? And this is the beauty of the Lord. He never ever said, if you asked him, you said, I'll tell you. His first thing is, what have you understood so far? What have you understood of surrender till now? And I said, Swami, of the little that I read and of the little that I heard from my elders, offering my everything to you is surrender. And Swami, I can still remember that scene is so vivid. Swami is folding his kerchief on the table, and in a very jovial manner, he said, God does not want anything from you, sir. And that was a jolt, because that is a fundamental shift in the understanding, at least for me, what surrender was. And then Swami said, at every stage in your life, if you believe that whatever is happening is good for you, is for your own good, that means you have surrendered to me. But Swami knew that I'm a slow learner, so he took that additional trouble, that additional steps of explaining to me the details, certain nuances. And sometimes when he's in that mood, you have to be receptive, because that is when those gems, every word of his is a gem, there's no doubt about it. But he tells some things which he usually does not reveal. And Swami asked me the question, do you know how to drive a car? I said, Swami, yes, Swami. Swami said, how many gears are there in a car? I said, Swami, 4. And then Swami said, what are those? I said, Swami, first, second, third, and fourth. Swami said, good. So tell me one thing. When the car is running in the first gear, is there a problem? And I said, no, Swami. When it's running in the second gear, is there a problem? I said, no, Swami. Third, fourth, is there a problem? And I was not understanding what he was hinting at. And I kept telling, no, Swami. And I couldn't understand what he was trying to arrive at. And then Swami asked me, then where is the problem? And I said, Swami, I don't know. And then Swami said, I'll tell you. The problem is in the transition. When the car is running in the first gear, it runs beautifully without any problem. Even in the second, third, and the fourth. But the problem is when you want to switch between the first to the second, or second to the third, or in between any of these gears, that is when you enter a problem zone. And what do you do in a car? And Swami himself told, there is a clutch. You press the clutch, and once you press the clutch, the transition between the gears becomes smooth. Of course, most of you would be used to automatic cars nowadays which have no gears, but these were all those good old days when we still had a lot of vehicles with manual gears around, and I think they still are. And then Swami said that clutch is what is the very important aspect. And he said, in life too, there are 4 gears: happiness, sorrow, happiness, sorrow. When life is continuing in happy times, everything is happy. Even when things take a turn for the bad, life still continues. Then where is the problem? The problem is the transition between happiness to sorrow. And that is when we lose our cool and calm. And at that point in time, I have given a clutch in life too. And what is that clutch? That clutch is, whatever is happening is good for me. Close your eyes and tell, whatever is happening is good for me. And the moment you tell yourself that, happiness and sorrow will no longer affect you. And that is the gem I was trying to tell a while ago. The gem is, Swami told, this is exactly what I told Arjuna in the battlefield. Sukha dukkha samay kritva labha labho jayo jayoha. In happiness and in sorrow, in victory and in defeat, in profit and loss, the one who is equanimous He is the one who has surrendered to me. The explanation was beautiful. Theory was very explained by Bhagwan. He is the Jagat Guru, in fact. But he is not the Guru who just gives or imparts theoretical lessons. Once I remember when we came back rushing in his presence, he asked us, what class did you have just now, theory or practical? And we also saw a theory class because we were in Prashanti Nilayam. We had come from Vrindavan for one of the Dashara celebrations, one of the years. And Swami gave a very beautiful remark. He said, theory, 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 what is the use if without practicals? My teachings are always practical. You have to do practical. So the theory part was imparted by him, and now it was the time of the practical. The practical was, I gave my talk, and I was telling you, the priests clapped the loudest, and I felt everything was fine. But there had to be a reason for the divine play. After my talk, there was a music program and there was an audio system failure. Apparently, Swami was extremely upset. And as we came, we all knew, oh my God, Swami is upset now. But I thought I was okay. I did well and I gave my talk. And in fact, even the pujaris clapped. What more could I have asked for? That was the thought running in my mind. And the unwritten rule was like anyone who spoke or performed that day, he would be the one sitting right close to Swami for that next session of next dining session. So it was my chance to sit. And as I sat, I could see Swami's face becoming very grave, and he was very angry, literally visibly upset. And he looked at me and said, Yemi baga matladledu. He just didn't speak well. And my heart sank and skipped a beat or two. And I did not know how to react. I did not know where I went wrong. And then Swami started, every 2 minutes he would look at me. The food was in front of me and nothing is going in. You can just imagine Swami being upset. And every 2 minutes he would look at me, Yemi baga matladledu. You didn't speak well at all. You didn't speak well at all. And he kept telling that. And I was thinking, what went wrong? And then, as if, giving an answer to that, Swami said, you didn't speak a word about Sharanagati. That is when I realized, okay, Swami, you are mixing things up. So Sharanagati was a doubt that I asked. My topic was never Sharanagati. My topic was Guru, and that was what I spoke. So sorry, you are mixing up things here. And I think I did pretty well. And then again, Swami would look, Baga matladledu. And thing is, in my mind, that voice was telling, no, Swami, you're mixing up, Swami, you're making a mistake here. And this continued for some time until probably my inner voice was so loud that I was not able to hear what Swami was telling me. And then there was that pin drop silence. Everything froze. And then Swami looked at me and said, Yemirani Sharanagati, what is your surrender to me? What have you really surrendered? He didn't speak a word after that, but that message went in so soon. That is the most beautiful part of communicating with the Lord, is that the lesser the words, the better the communication is. In fact, words are too feeble a medium to communicate. What he intended to tell was like, just yesterday I told you that whatever happens is for your own good. And if today I'm shouting at you or I'm visibly upset with you, it is for your own good. Why aren't you getting that simple lesson? The moment he said that, that voice came down, and I realized that my own foolishness had become the biggest obstacle in understanding that beautiful lesson that he taught the other day. And I started crying. I broke down and I fell at his feet. And you can realize that, you can feel that immediate change. And Swami said, hey, Bangaru, kuchotinu, have food. It's getting cold. And every 2 minutes he would look at me and say, did you like the food? What is there? So it's like he sort of was trying to tell that, okay, this was the lesson I wanted to communicate. And if you have understood that, I think we are good. Of all these lessons of prayer, probably the most beautiful one and the most difficult one is this last step of acceptance, of surrender. Prayer is a journey to soften our hearts, to sow the seeds of goodness so that it becomes fertile. And finally, when it becomes fertile, to offer that very heart to Him. Swami very beautifully describes this process in a Telugu poem. Prema leni marubhumuలలో ప్రేమాంకురములు పెంపొంద ప్రేమావేశముతో ప్రేమ సుధావర్ సంవర్షింపగా ప్రేమ నదులు ప్రవహింపగా మురళి గానం చెయ్యకదే కృష్ణ గానం చెయ్యకదే. Our heart is parched. It's like a desert, devoid of love. There I sow the seeds of love in your heart of transformation. And then I shower grace and a lot of experiences of love. That is when the streams start flowing, the flowers start blossoming, and your heart becomes fertile. And that is when the Lord seats Himself in that heart and plays His divine flute. Ganam Sayyakade, Krishna Ganam Sayyakade. I would take this opportunity to thank you all here for giving me this wonderful chance of reliving those memories, reliving in His memories, His thoughts, and sharing those little things that we got to learn at His divine lotus feet, looking at Him, looking at His devotees, reflecting His divinity, and in the process transforming our lives. Please do not think that I'm in any capacity trying to preach anyone. I don't think I have that in me at all. It's just that those 10 years, those 12 years staying very close to Him, we have a lot of stories, a lot of things to share. And with that humility and with that feeling of brotherhood, who is a co-traveler in the spiritual path, I've shared these few thoughts, some reflections on how it is to please Him and how the journey can be in terms of a prayer, from a petition to acceptance, which could be surrender. I am indeed grateful to each and every one of you, and especially to my dear brother Shravan for being the instrument in facilitating this particular talk, this beautiful Samarpan series, and I offer this Samarpan as well at his lotus feet. Thank you so much, everyone. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, brother, Sai Ram. I take this opportunity to thank Swami, first of all, to have sent brother Jagadish Chandra via the internet, I would say, over the online, to us. It is Swami's gesture of, prema lone lene marubhumilo premangurma pempanta prema sudha varshimpa. So the thing is, Swami has his way of sending the seeds of love wherever we are, and so that is Swami's gesture. And some of the seeds were sent through brother Jagadish Chandra to share with us. I thank brother Jagadish Chandra for singing the glory of prayer, the various nuances of prayer which he has learned at the feet of Swami, with share practical lessons. Swami, as brother has said, practical lessons. Nothing like listening from someone who has learned it from the guru, who is the formless one with form, as Swami has imprinted on him. So it was wonderful to listen. How the various aspects of devotion, from the individual to the association or the world around us, and reaching to the Lord, Swami himself. Swami always says, SAI, the spirit, the association, and the individual. That is the way it should go. But our journey is actually starts from the individual to the spirit, and it was very, very nicely built up and nicely told to us Thank you very much, brother. Brother, it's past midnight in Germany where he is. But, I think Swami is so dear to him, he didn't have any problem accepting the invitation. Though he has traveled from the individual to Swami, and now Swami has taken it. And, he nicely put us, because he started with the words that we are in a cocoon because we are in COVID. And at the end, he said we had to somehow get over this. But the irony is that he ended it saying, accept everything. Ultimately, that's what it is. Because we really don't know what the Lord is doing. We are cocooned, but it's a metamorphosis. The butterfly will come out with colors which will bring joy. And, so the very elevating thoughts. I don't want to take up everyone's time, but it was very wonderful, brother. Thanks for coming and sharing them in very simple, with anecdotes, drive home the point which Swami wants us to all learn. And incidentally, you mentioned about Mahamrityunjaya Mantra. Today only we had a Sanskrit session and we just discussed Mahamrityunjaya Mantra. So I thought it was a coincidence. It was that those words have to come from you, just to say, Swami, I am the one who is putting the seeds of thoughts and also choreographing the play. Absolutely. Because after all, he is the director, he is the scripter, as you said. So he is drama. And I think the last point I found it very nice is, whenever there's a change, accept. That's where it is. If we do not know how to accept, then all the problems and sorrows come to us. If there's a change, accept it, because the Lord is making it happen. So those are wonderful words of wisdom. And, some of this we may have heard, but, it's always nice to recollect. And it was wonderful, brother. You brought a lot of energy, which made us, as if Swami was there directing you to talk, the way in Tiruvanmayur you would have spoken. That's the way we felt. We clapped, actually. I don't think you would have seen it. But I'm sure your surrender came through very well. Jai Sai Ram, brother. Thank you very much. And I also take this opportunity to thank all the listeners who joined us today in joining and listening to Swami's glory and receive the blessings which Swami has sent us. So with those words, I will thank everyone and we will close the session. Thank you very much, brother. We hope you will come again and talk to us. Sai Ram.
Om Jai Jagadish Hare Swami Satya Sai Hare Bhakta Jana Samrakshak Bhakta Jana Samrakshak Pati Maheshwara Om Jai Jagadish Hare Shashi Vadana Sridhara Sarva Pranapati Swami Sarva Pranapati Ashrita Kalpalatika Ashrita Kalpalatika Avatandhava Om Jai Jagadish Hare Mata Pita Guru Daivamu Mariyantayu Nive Swami Mariyantayu Nive Nada Brahma Jagannatha Nada Brahma Jagannatha Nagera Shayana Om Jai Jagadish Hare Omkara Rupa Ojasvi Ho Sai Mahadeva Satya Sai Mahadeva Mangala Harati Anduko Mangala Harati Anduko Mandala Giridhari Om Jai Jagadish Hare Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Sadguru Deva Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति 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 समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु शांति 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 जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा